Hello and welcome to Paul Runs Daily. In today's episode I'm having a little bit of a ramble about training, talk a little bit about my own experience and a little bit about my experience of working with other athletes. It isn't coaching advice, I'm trying to be a little bit more broad with the subject matter. I have rambled a little bit because I'm working off the top of my head and I'm in the middle of a run myself. So if you've got any questions, hit me up in the comments or send me a message and we can have a discussion about it. Hope you enjoy. See you all soon. A very common saying, especially on social media, is everyone's different and do what's right for you, or do your own research. And what does that actually mean? What's right for you as an athlete in a particular session may not necessarily match with your long-term aspirations. There's no quick way of hitting you with this information. I can't condense it into a 10-second clip, and if I'm honest, it's very difficult to actually put it into words without sitting down with someone over a period of time and discussing it and listening to the other person's thoughts and feelings about a particular modality of training or philosophy. Let's try and look for things that we all agree on. There seems to be a lot of memes talking about consistency being the key. I've shared memes along those lines, like consistency is the key to success. So I think we've got a broad agreement that consistency is a key aspect of success in terms of athletic performance. So let's have a look at factors what can affect consistency. In my personal experience as an athlete, the major barrier to consistency for me is injury. In my younger days, in my late teens, early 20s, all I wanted to do was run fast. So every training session I was running as fast as I can for a given distance, and I achieved some quite remarkable success with that. The problem with that, I would often break and I would have to take periods of time out of running in order to recover and rehabilitate, and more often than not I would return back to running too soon, I would go too fast and I would break again. The flip side is it led me to triathlon, which is a whole different ball game. So we'll talk about that maybe on another video. So that was my major barrier to consistency. Other barriers to consistency are motivation. Quite recently I've suffered massively with low motivation, and I know many other athletes suffer in the same way. So if we take those two elements, injury and motivation, and if we talk about those individually, injuries generally occur because an athlete has done too much or too hard. So too much would be making big jumps in training volume and continuing those progressions without any thoughts or consideration for recovery, and that tends to lead to injury, can lead to low motivation as well, and it will definitely become a barrier to consistency over time. Not always immediately, might take weeks, sometimes can take months, but generally that overload or persistent overload without adequate recovery will cause problems for most athletes at some point. Too hard is kind of what I used to do, whereas I'm always trying for PBs. I'm always looking to run fast. If I'm running with other people, I'm trying to beat them up the hill, I'm trying to race to the road sign, I'm trying to swim to the end of the lane as quick as I can. And that is just as unhealthy over the long term as doing too much. So taking those two factors, to minimise them, as a coach I would generally prescribe too little and too soft, because that would minimise the risk of injury and burnout, and maximise the athlete's potential to train consistently. Does that make sense? I've been walking around in circles in these woods now, trying to get my thoughts in order. If there's a demand for it, I'll talk more about this over the coming weeks. I'll link it to my own personal journey. I'll talk about the mistakes I've made historically and also more recently in terms of my training, and I'll try and find ways in how other people can learn from my mistakes and from the mistakes I've observed in other athletes. If you've got any questions, please either message me or put a comment and let's have a discussion about it. Let's keep it civil, let's argue and disagree, and then we can all learn from it. And just one final note to leave you with: if anyone says they have the solution to your woes and they have the fix that you can adopt, which will suddenly change all your fortunes in terms of athletic performance, then they're either trying to sell you something, trying to promote themselves in order to tell you something, or they're outright lying. So let's keep it civil. I appreciate you all. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all soon.